Alana Voss stood on her balcony and watched the ships fall from the dark sky. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Each one carried a prince who believed he would win her hand. She felt nothing but tiredness that the planet below her was called Noctis Prime. It was the homeworld of the vampires. There was no true sunlight here. The sky was always caught between day and night, painted in shades of purple and deep red. It was beautiful, but Elena had stopped noticing its beauty long ago. She was over 800 years old. She looked like a young woman in her mid-20s, with pale skin and dark hair that fell past her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of blood when she was angry, but now they were a soft amber. She wore a black gown that moved like smoke around her feet. Behind her, the door opened. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. "The guests are arriving," said Queen Seraphina, her mother. "You should prepare yourself." Elena kept her eyes on the ships. "I have been preparing for this my entire life, Mother." The queen walked to stand beside her daughter. She was even more beautiful than Elena, with silver hair and eyes like frozen fire. She had ruled the Crimson Dominion for 3,000 years, and she had not done it by being soft. "This summit is important," the queen said. "The princes who come here represent the most powerful empires in the galaxy. You will choose one of them. You will secure our future. And what about my future?" Elena asked quietly. The queen's expression did not change. "Your future is the Dominion's future. It has always been this way." Elena said nothing. There was nothing to say. She had been a political tool since the day she was born. Her beauty and her bloodline were weapons to be used for alliances. She had accepted this truth long ago. But accepting something did not mean she had to like it. The queen left, and Elena continued to watch the ships land. The welcome feast was held in the great hall of the Obsidian Palace. The room was enormous, with pillars of black stone that reached up into darkness. Thousands of candles floated in the air, casting everything in warm golden light. Long tables were covered with food and drink from 100 different worlds. Elena sat on a raised platform beside her mother. From here, she could see everyone, and everyone could see her. The princes came forward one by one to present themselves. First was Prince Orion of the Solaron Empire. He was tall and covered in golden scales that shimmered like sunlight. His people drew power from stars, and he glowed faintly even in the candlelight. He was handsome by galactic standards, and he knew it. "Princess Elena," he said, bowing deeply, "the stars themselves have guided me to you. Our union is destiny. Together, we will illuminate the entire cosmos." Elena smiled politely. "Thank you for your kind words, Prince Orion." He seemed to expect more. When she said nothing else, his smile became a little stiff. He returned to his seat. Next came Prince Victor Thane of the Mirage Collective. His people were shapeshifters, able to become anyone or anything. As he approached, his form shifted and changed. Suddenly, he looked like the most handsome man Elena had ever imagined. He had taken a form designed specifically to attract her. "I can be whatever you desire," he said smoothly. "Your perfect partner. Your ideal match." Elena looked at him with her ancient eyes. She could see through the illusion. Underneath all the beauty, she could sense his true nature. It was cold and calculating, like a snake wearing a mask. "A pretty trick," she said, "but I prefer honesty." Victor's perfect smile flickered for just a moment. He had not expected her to see through him so easily. He bowed and stepped back, his eyes thoughtful. The third prince was Callum Dredd of the Iron Syndicate. He was more machine than flesh, with cybernetic parts covering most of his body. One of his eyes glowed red. He did not try to charm her. Instead, he activated a holographic display that showed his massive war fleet. "I offer you power," he said in a mechanical voice. "Military," Strength. Strategic advantage. Marriage is a business arrangement. I am the best investment. Elena nodded, slowly. Your honesty is refreshing, at least. Callum seemed satisfied with this response. He turned off his display and walked away. There were other princes too, from smaller empires and distant worlds. Elena greeted each one with the same polite smile. She said the right words. She played her role perfectly. But inside, she felt empty as the feast continued. Something unexpected happened. A small ship appeared in the sky above the palace. It was not like the grand vessels of the princes. It was simple and plain, clearly built for function rather than beauty. Who is that? Someone asked. The answer came quickly. It was the human delegation. Humanity was new to the galactic stage. They had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. They were not invited to the summit, but they had come anyway, hoping to make contact with the great powers of the galaxy. Many of the guests laughed at the small human ship. What could such a young and weak species possibly offer? They were like children walking into a room full of giants. Elena watched with mild curiosity as the human delegation entered the hall. There were only 5 of them. They wore simple uniforms and looked nervous but determined. Most of them were diplomats, but one of them was different. His name was Danny Cole. He was an engineer, part of the crew that kept their ship running. He was in his mid-30s, with brown hair and kind eyes. He was not particularly handsome or impressive. He was just a man, but there was something about him that made Elena pause. Later that night, Elena escaped from the endless conversations and walked alone in the royal gardens. The gardens were filled with flowers that bloomed only in darkness, their petals glowing softly with inner light. She often came here when she needed to think. She heard footsteps behind her and turned, expecting a guard or perhaps one of the princes who had followed her. Instead, she saw the human. Danny Cole. He stopped when he saw her. His eyes went wide. Oh, sorry, I got lost. This place is like a maze. Elena studied him. He did not bow. He did not stammer out compliments. He just stood there, looking embarrassed. You are the human engineer, she said. Yeah, that's me. He looked around at the glowing flowers. This is a pretty strange garden. Beautiful though, in a kind of aggressive way. Elena blinked. Aggressive? I mean, everything here seems designed to be intimidating. The Black Palace. The floating candles. Even these flowers look like they might bite you. He smiled. It's very impressive. Don't get me wrong. Just a lot to take in. No one had ever spoken to her so casually before. No one had ever dared. Elena found herself fighting the urge to smile. You speak freely, she said. Are all humans like this? Danny shrugged. I don't know. I'm just me. Sorry if I'm being rude. We're pretty new to all this alien stuff. You are not being rude, Elena said. You are being refreshing. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Danny cleared his throat. Well, I should probably find my way back before someone thinks I'm trying to steal something. Nice meeting you, princess. He walked away, disappearing into the dark garden. Elena watched him go. She did not know why, but she felt curious. For the first time in centuries, someone had treated her like a person instead of a prize. She touched her chest. Where a cold heart had been silent for 800 years, something had just happened. She did not know what it meant yet, but she wanted to find out. The trials began on the second day of the summit. These were ancient ceremonies designed to test the worthiness of each suitor. The princes would compete in challenges of strength, cunning, and skill. Elena would watch and judge them. The first trial was called the Hunt of Shadows. Deep beneath the Obsidian Palace, there were vaults filled with dangerous creatures captured from across the galaxy. Each prince would enter the vault alone, and subdue one of these beasts. The one who brought back the most impressive trophy would win the trial. Elena sat on a viewing platform, high above the vault entrance. Screens around her showed what was happening inside. She watched with bored eyes. Prince Orion went first. He moved through the dark tunnels with confidence, his golden scales providing their own light. When he found a massive shadow beast with 6 legs and poison fangs, he fought it with pure strength. He was fast and powerful. The beast did not stand a chance. He dragged its unconscious body back to the entrance, smiling proudly. "For you, princess," he said, looking up at her. Elena nodded. "Well done." Prince Victor went next. He used tricks and deception. He changed his shape to confuse the creatures, making them attack each other instead of him. In the end, he captured a rare phantom snake that could turn invisible. He presented it in a cage, looking pleased with himself. "Beauty and cunning," he said. "We would make a good match." Elena nodded again. "Clever." Prince Callum simply sent in drones. His mechanical eyes showed him everything his machine saw. Within minutes, he had captured 3 creatures using electric nets and stasis fields. He did not even enter the vault himself. "Efficiency," he said flatly. "That is what I offer." Elena watched all of this and felt nothing. The princes treated the trial as a performance for her benefit. They were showing off, like peacocks spreading their feathers. None of it felt real. None of it felt true. During a break in the trials, Elena slipped away. No one noticed her leave. They were all too busy talking about the princes and their impressive displays. She walked through the palace until she reached the landing area where the ships were parked. The great vessels of the princes stood like monuments, covered in gold and silver and precious gems. At the far end, almost hidden in shadow, was the small human ship. Elena approached it quietly. She could hear sounds coming from inside. Metal against metal. Someone was working. She found Danny Cole under the ship's engine, covered in grease and oil. He was singing softly to himself, a song from Earth that she did not recognize. When he saw her feet approaching, he slid out from under the engine and looked up. "Princess?" He sat up quickly, almost hitting his head. "What are you doing here?" "I was bored," Elena said simply. "The trials are not interesting to me." Danny wiped his hands on a cloth and stood up. "Not interesting? From what I heard, there's princes fighting monsters down there. That sounds pretty exciting." "They are performing," Elena said. "It is all for show. I have seen it 1,000 times before." Danny nodded slowly. "I guess when you've been alive for hundreds of years, things stop being new." Elena looked at him. "How old are you?" 34. "I have worn single dresses for longer than your entire life." Danny laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine. "That's either impressive or really sad. Maybe both." Elena almost smiled. Almost. "What are you doing under your ship?" "Fixing the cooling system. It keeps overheating. Earth technology isn't exactly top of the line compared to everyone else here. We're basically flying a tin can through space." "And yet you came all this way?" "Yeah, well, humans are stubborn." Danny shrugged. "We didn't wait until we were ready. We just went. That's kind of our thing." Elena sat down on a nearby crate, not caring that it was dirty. Danny looked surprised but did not comment. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence. "Can I ask you something?" Danny said finally. "You may. What do you actually want?" "I mean, all these princes are fighting for your hand." "But what do you want?" Elena stared at him. In 800 years, no one had ever asked her that question. Her mother told her what to do. The court told her what to do. The Dominion needed this alliance or that alliance. No one had ever asked what she wanted. "I do not know," she admitted. "I have never been allowed to want anything." Danny's expression softened. That sounds lonely. It is. You know what I think? Danny leaned against the ship. I think even monsters deserve company. Real company, I mean. Not just people who want something from you. Elena raised an eyebrow. Did you just call me a monster? Danny's face went pale. Oh God, no. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant... vampires, you know. It's just a word. He was stumbling over his words now, clearly panicked. Elena laughed. It was a real laugh, one that came from somewhere deep inside her. She could not remember the last time she had laughed like that. Danny stopped panicking and stared at her. That's a nice sound. What is? Your laugh. You should do it more often. Elena looked away, feeling something strange in her chest. It was warm. She did not understand it. Over the next few days, she found excuses to visit the human ship. Danny always seemed happy to see her. He told her stories about Earth. He described oceans that sparkled under sunlight and forests filled with singing birds. He talked about seasons that changed, about snow that melted into spring. Your planet sounds beautiful, Elena said one evening. It is, Danny agreed. But it's also fragile. We almost destroyed it a few times. Wars, pollution, stupidity. He smiled sadly. That's why we're out here. We're trying to do better. Become part of something bigger. Most species see humans as weak, Elena said. Young, primitive. Maybe we are. Danny did not seem offended. But we're also survivors. Our species is only a few 100,000 years old. We've made a lot of mistakes. But we're still here. That counts for something, right? Elena thought about this. The vampires were ancient and powerful. They measured time in empires. But there was something in Danny's words that struck her. Humans lived such short lives, but they lived them fully. They made mistakes and learned. They fell and got back up. You measure time in moments, she said softly. We measure it in centuries. Maybe that's why you all seem so tired, Danny replied gently. You've been carrying the weight of all those years. That's a heavy burden. Elena looked at him. His eyes were warm and kind. He did not look at her with desire or calculation. He just looked at her like she was a person, a friend. That night she returned to her chambers and stood before her mirror. For the first time in decades, she looked at her own face and wondered who she really was, underneath all the titles and expectations. But her happiness did not last. Prince Victor had been watching. He had noticed Elena's absences. He had followed her with his spies. Now he knew about the human. The next morning, Queen Serafina summoned Elena to her throne room. Her mother's face was cold as ice. I know about the human, the queen said. This foolishness ends now. Elena kept her expression calm. I do not know what you mean. Do not lie to me, daughter. You have been sneaking away to see that creature. It is beneath you. It is beneath this house. He is my friend. Friend? The queen laughed coldly. A princess does not have friends. She has tools, allies, weapons. That human is nothing. His species is nothing. They are insects compared to us. Elena felt anger rise inside her, but she pushed it down. I understand, mother. Good. The trials continue tomorrow. You will attend. You will smile. You will choose a worthy prince. The queen leaned forward. Forget the human. He cannot give you anything that matters. Elena bowed and left the throne room. But in her heart, she had already made a decision. Her mother was wrong. Danny had given her something that none of the princes could offer. He had made her feel alive. The second trial was called the Trial of Minds. It was a psychic battle where the suitors would test their mental strength against each other. Elena was supposed to watch from her throne, judging their worthiness. But her thoughts kept drifting to Danny. She had not seen him in 2 days. Her mother had placed guards near the human ship, making it impossible for her to visit. She felt trapped in her own palace, surrounded by gold and silk and emptiness. Prince Victor found her alone that evening. He appeared from the shadows, his shapeshifter form sliding into view like smoke becoming solid. His smile was pleasant, but his eyes were cold. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly, "may I have a moment of your time?" Elena did not trust him, but she could not refuse without causing problems. "Speak." Victor walked closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "I know about your little secret. The human engineer. Danny Cole, I believe his name is." Elena's expression did not change, but inside she felt a chill. "What of it?" "I find it fascinating," Victor continued. "A princess of the Crimson Dominion, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, sneaking away to spend time with a mortal insect. What could he possibly offer you? That is none of your concern." "Ah, but it is." Victor's smile grew wider. "I am here to win your hand, princess. And I do not like a competition, especially competition that is so far beneath me." Elena's eyes began to glow red. "Choose your next words carefully." Victor was not afraid. He leaned even closer. "Here's my offer. Marry me. Together, we will rule an empire. I will give you power and freedom. And in return, you can keep your pet human on the side. I will even look the other way. No one needs to know." Elena's hand moved so fast that Victor did not see it coming. Her fingers wrapped around his throat and lifted him off the ground. Her eyes were blazing crimson now, and her fangs had extended. "He is not a pet," she hissed. "And I am not for sale." Victor's form flickered and shifted, trying to escape her grip. But her strength was ancient and absolute. She held him in the air like he weighed nothing. "If you ever speak of him again," Elena said softly, "I will show you why my family has ruled for 3,000 years. She threw him across the room. He crashed into a pillar and slid to the floor, gasping for breath. When he looked up, there was fear in his eyes. Real fear. "Understood," he whispered. Elena walked away without looking back, but the damage was done. Word of her interest in the human was spreading through the court. Prince Orion heard the rumors, and he became obsessed. In his mind, the human had somehow bewitched the princess. It was the only explanation. A creature as lowly as a human could not possibly compete with him otherwise. Orion began to plan. If the human was removed from the equation, Elena would see clearly again. She would recognize that he, Prince Orion of the Solaran Empire, was her true destiny. Meanwhile, Danny continued his work on the human ship, unaware of the danger. The ambassador needed the ship ready for departure. The Galactic Concord had not invited humanity to join, and their presence at the summit was barely tolerated. They would need to leave soon. That night, Elena managed to slip past the guards. She found Danny sitting on the roof of his ship, looking up at the stars. When he saw her, his face lit up with a smile. "I was wondering if I'd see you again," he said. "I heard there were guards." "I am the princess," Elena replied, sitting beside him. "I go where I wish." They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars. The sky above Noctis Prime was beautiful, filled with distant suns and glowing nebulae. "I brought you something," Elena said. She held out a small crystal device. "It is a star map. It shows every system controlled by the Crimson Dominion. I thought you might find it interesting." Danny took the device carefully. When he activated it, tiny holographic stars appeared in the air around them. His eyes went wide with wonder. "This is incredible," he breathed. "There must be thousands of worlds here." 2047, Elena said. "Each one conquered or claimed over the past 4,000 years. That's..." Danny shook his head. "I can't even imagine." Humanity has barely explored our own solar system. We've only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. And yet here you are, Elena said, among the stars, talking to a vampire princess. Danny laughed. Yeah, my life has gotten pretty weird lately. Elena smiled. She liked making him laugh. She liked the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was happy. Tell me about Earth again, she said. Tell me about the oceans. So Danny told her. He described waves crashing against sandy beaches. He talked about sunsets that painted the sky in orange and pink. He told her about whales that sang songs across thousands of miles of water. Our lives are short, he said, so we learn to pay attention to the small things. A good meal, a beautiful sunset, a conversation with someone you care about. We don't have centuries to waste, so we try to make every moment count. Elena felt something shift inside her. She had lived for 800 years. But how many of those years had truly meant anything? She had performed her duties, played her role, watched empires rise and fall. But she had never really lived. I envy you, she said quietly. Danny looked at her with surprise. You envy me? I'm nobody. You're a princess. You are not nobody. Elena met his eyes. You are the most honest person I have ever met. You treat me like a real person. Not a prize. Not a tool. Just me. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and gently took her hand. Her skin was cold, but his touch was warm. Maybe that's because you are a real person, he said. Titles don't change that. Elena did not pull her hand away. She could feel his heartbeat through his fingers. Steady and alive. They sat like that until the first light of false dawn appeared on the horizon. The next evening. Everything changed. Elena was in her chambers when she heard the explosion. The sound was distant but unmistakable. She ran to her window and saw flames rising from the landing area. From the human ship, her heart stopped. Danny. She moved faster than she had ever moved before. She became a blur of shadow and wind, racing through the palace and out into the night. When she reached the landing area, she found chaos. The human ship was burning. Crew members were trying to put out the flames. And there, lying on the ground, was Danny. He was bleeding. A piece of metal had cut his side open. His face was pale, and his breathing was shallow. But he was alive. Elena knelt beside him, her hands pressing against his wound. What happened? Sabotage, Danny gasped. Someone rigged the engine. It just exploded. Elena looked at the burning ship, and she knew. She knew exactly who had done this. Prince Orion. He was too proud to attack directly, so he had tried to kill Danny with a cowardly trick. Vampire healers arrived and took Danny to the medical wing. Elena followed, refusing to leave his side. The doctor said he would survive, but it was close. If the explosion had been slightly larger, he would be dead. When she finally left the medical wing, her eyes were glowing like blood moons. She walked into the great hall, where the princes and nobles were gathered for dinner. She walked straight to Prince Orion's table. You, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. You tried to kill him. The hall fell silent. Everyone was watching. Orion smiled calmly. I do not know what you mean, princess. What would I gain from harming a worthless human? He is not worthless. Elena's voice was ice. I demand justice. Justice for what? An accident? Orion laughed. Their primitive technology failed. It happens. Their lives are brief and meaningless. Why do you care so much about one human insect? Elena stood tall. Her power radiated from her like cold fire. Every ancient vampire in the room could feel it. Because that human, she said slowly, matters to me. The words echoed in the silent hall. The princes stared at her in shock. Queen Seraphina closed her eyes in horror. Elena had just declared her feelings in front of the entire galaxy. There was no going back now. The courtship summit fell into chaos. Elena's declaration had humiliated the princes and created a scandal that spread across the galaxy within hours. A vampire princess had chosen a human. The news was impossible to believe, yet everyone had witnessed it. Prince Callum withdrew his suit the next morning. He called Elena's decision irrational and said he had no interest in competing against a species that could not even build a proper starship. He left Noctis Prime without another word. Prince Victor also stepped back, though he stayed to watch the drama unfold. His pride had been hurt by Elena's rejection, but he was smart enough to know when to retreat. He would wait and see what happened next. But Prince Orion refused to accept defeat. He came from a proud species. The Solarians believed they were children of the stars, destined to rule the galaxy. To lose a princess to a human was unthinkable. It was an insult to his entire civilization. On the third day after Elena's declaration, Orion called for a meeting of the court. He stood before the throne of Queen Seraphina and spoke in a voice that everyone could hear. "I invoke the challenge of blood," he announced. The court gasped. Elena felt her heart turn cold. The challenge of blood was an ancient law. It allowed a suitor to challenge any rival to a duel to the death. The winner would earn the right to claim the princess's hand. The loser would die. It was a tradition from a more violent age, rarely used in modern times, but it was still law. "You cannot be serious," Elena said, stepping forward. "A human against a Solarian prince? It would be murder." "It would be justice," Orion replied. "Your human has interfered in sacred traditions. He has stolen what is rightfully mine. Let him prove his worth in combat, or let him die a coward." "I did not steal anything," said a voice from the back of the hall. Everyone turned. Danny Cole stood at the entrance, supported by two human diplomats. His wound was bandaged, and he was pale, but his eyes were clear. He walked forward slowly, refusing help from his companions. "I never claimed the princess," Danny said. "She's not property. She's a person. And people have the right to choose who they want to be with." Orion laughed. "Listen to it speak. Do insects have rights now?" "Under the ancient law," Queen Seraphina said quietly, "the human has two choices. He may accept the challenge, or he may refuse. If he refuses, he admits that he has no claim to the princess, and he will be executed for the crime of corrupting a royal bloodline." Elena whirled on her mother. "You cannot do this." "The law is absolute," the queen replied. Her face showed no emotion. "I did not write it, but I must enforce it." Danny stood very still. He looked at Orion, who was smiling with cruel confidence. Then he looked at Elena, whose eyes were filled with fear. "I accept," Danny said. The court exploded with noise. People shouted and argued. Some laughed at the foolish human. Others were shocked that he would agree to such certain death. Elena pushed through the crowd and grabbed Danny's arm. "What are you doing?" "He will kill you. He's stronger, faster, more powerful in every way." "Probably," Danny agreed. "But if I don't fight, they'll execute me anyway. At least this way, I have a chance. And at least this way, you'll know I was willing to fight for you. Danny, please." Elena's voice cracked. "I cannot watch you die." Danny smiled softly. He reached up and touched her face. His hand was warm against her cold skin. "You're worth fighting for," he said. "Even if I lose, at least you'll know that someone chose you. Not your crown. Not your power. Just you." Elena felt tears in her eyes. In 800 years, she had not cried. She had forgotten what tears felt like. The duel was set for 3 days later. It would take place in the arena of eternity, an ancient colosseum where vampires had settled disputes for thousands of years. Champions and kings had fought and died on its blood-stained floor. Elena spent those 3 days preparing Danny. She brought him to a private training room deep in the palace, where no one could see them. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "Solorans are powerful, but they have weaknesses. Their strength comes from solar radiation. They absorb energy from stars. If you can cut them off from that energy, they become weaker." She showed him diagrams of Soloran anatomy. She explained the nerve clusters, the pressure points, the vulnerable areas that most people did not know about. "Here," she said, pointing to the base of the neck. "A strong strike here can disrupt their energy flow. It will not kill him, but it will slow him down." Danny studied the diagrams with intense focus. "How do you know all this?" "I am 800 years old," Elena said. "I have fought Solorans before. Long ago, during the border wars." Danny nodded. He was not asking questions about that. He did not have time for history. "I have something else for you," Elena said. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small glass vial filled with dark red liquid. "My blood." Danny stared at it. "Your blood? It is an ancient gift among my people. If you drink this before the duel, it will heal your wounds and give you enhanced strength and speed. The effects are temporary, but they may give you an edge." Danny took the vial carefully. "Will it turn me into a vampire?" "No. That requires a more complete ritual. This is just a taste." Elena looked away. "It is also a symbol. Among my people, sharing blood means trust, commitment. It means you are mine and I am yours." Danny was quiet for a long moment. Then he put the vial in his pocket. "I understand," he said. "I accept." On the night before the duel, they sat together on the palace roof, looking at the stars one last time. "Are you afraid?" Elena asked. "Yes," Danny admitted. "But I've been afraid before. Fear is just a feeling. It doesn't have to control you. How do humans stay so brave? You live such short lives. Death is always close to you." Danny thought about this. Maybe that's why. We know we're going to die eventually. So we learn to accept it. We focus on what matters while we're still here. He looked at her. "You matter to me, Elena. If I die tomorrow, at least I'll die knowing I met someone worth dying for." Elena moved closer to him. She rested her head on his shoulder. Her body was cold, but somehow, being near him made her feel warm inside. "I do not want you to die," she whispered. "Then I'll try not to." They sat together until the first light of dawn appeared. Then Danny stood up, stretched his wounded muscles, and walked toward his fate. The arena of eternity waited. So did Prince Orion, and the entire galaxy was watching. The arena of eternity was filled with thousands of spectators. They came from every corner of the galaxy, crowding into the ancient stone seats to witness the most unexpected duel in history. Giant screens floated above the arena, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers across the stars. A human against a Soloran prince. No one believed a human had a chance. Most had come to watch him die. Elena sat in the royal box beside her mother. Her face was calm, but her hands gripped the arms of her chair so tightly that the stone cracked beneath her fingers. Queen Seraphina noticed but said nothing. The human ambassador sat in a lower box, surrounded by the small human delegation. Their faces were pale with worry. They had begged Danny to withdraw, to flee, to do anything other than face certain death. He had refused. A horn sounded, deep and resonant. The gates at opposite ends of the arena began to open. Prince Orion entered first. He wore ceremonial armor that gleamed like pure gold. His scales shimmered with absorbed starlight, and his body glowed with barely contained power. He carried no weapon. He did not need one. His fists could shatter steel. The crowd cheered for him. He raised his arms and smiled, drinking in their adoration. Then Danny Cole entered. He wore simple clothes. No armor, no royal finery. He looked like exactly what he was, an ordinary human engineer from a backwater planet. A small device was strapped to his belt, and Elena's blood vial was hidden in his pocket. That was all. The crowd laughed. Some jeered. A few threw insults. Danny walked to the center of the arena and stood calmly, waiting. Orion approached, still smiling. He stopped a few feet away from Danny and looked down at him with contempt. "I will make this quick little creature," Orion said. "I am not without mercy." Danny met his eyes. "Big words. Let's see if you can back them up." Orion's smile flickered. He was not used to being spoken to this way. A bell rang. The duel began. Orion moved first. He was incredibly fast, crossing the distance between them in a heartbeat. His fist slammed into Danny's chest and sent him flying across the arena. Danny crashed into the far wall and slid to the ground. The crowd roared with excitement. Danny coughed blood and slowly stood up. His ribs were cracked. The blow would have killed a normal human instantly. But Danny had drunk Elena's blood before the duel. His wounds were already beginning to heal. Orion frowned. He had expected the fight to end with that single punch. "Interesting. You are harder to kill than I thought." "I get that a lot," Danny said. Orion attacked again. This time, Danny was ready. He ducked under the first punch, rolled past the second, and kept moving. He was not trying to fight back. He was studying his opponent, learning his patterns. The crowd watched in confusion. Why was the human running? Why did he not try to fight? Elena understood. Danny was not a warrior. He was an engineer. He solved problems by understanding them. He was gathering data. For several minutes, Danny simply survived. He dodged and weaved, taking glancing blows that would have killed him without Elena's blood. Each hit hurt, but each hit also taught him something about how Orion moved. Finally, Danny made his move. He pulled the small device from his belt and pressed the button. The device emitted a high-frequency pulse that spread across the arena. To most species, it was harmless. But to Solarans, it was devastating. The pulse disrupted the energy that Solarans absorbed from starlight. Orion's golden glow began to dim. His movements slowed. The confident smile disappeared from his face. "What have you done?" Orion demanded. "Did my research?" Danny said. "Your species absorbs solar radiation to power yourselves. Cut off that energy, and you start to weaken. This device creates a field that blocks that absorption." Orion roared with fury and charged at Danny, but he was slower now. His punches had less power. Danny was able to dodge more easily. The crowd fell silent. This was not what they expected. "You think strength is everything," Danny said, ducking under another swing. "Humanity learned a long time ago that the smartest fighter wins. We're survivors. We adapt. We endure." Orion was getting desperate. He threw wild punches, wasting energy he could no longer replace. Danny kept moving, kept dodging, kept waiting for the right moment. Elena leaned forward in her seat. Her eyes were fixed on Danny. Orion stumbled. His glow was almost completely gone now. His golden scales looked dull and faded. Danny saw his chance. He remembered everything Elena had taught him. The nerve cluster at the base of the neck. The vulnerable point that could disrupt a Solaran's energy flow. He moved. Orion threw one more desperate punch. Danny slipped past it, stepped inside his guard, and struck with all his strength. His fist hit the exact spot Elena had shown him. Orion's eyes went wide. His body seized up. He tried to move, but his muscles would not respond. Danny stepped back and watched as the prince collapsed to his knees, then fell forward onto his face. The arena was completely silent. Danny stood over the fallen prince, breathing hard. His body was covered in bruises and cuts. Elena's blood was the only reason he was still standing. But he was standing. He looked up at the royal box and found Elena's eyes. "Told you I'd fight for you," he said. Elena leaped from the royal box. She did not walk or run. She simply flew, crossing the arena in an instant. She landed beside Danny and threw her arms around him, holding him tight. The crowd erupted. Some were cheering. Some were shouting in disbelief. A human had defeated a Solaran prince. The impossible had happened. Queen Seraphina watched from her throne. Her expression was unreadable, but inside she was calculating. A species that could defeat Solarans was not to be dismissed. Humanity had just proven they were more than insects. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The Galactic Concord admitted humanity as a full member. It was the fastest ascension in recorded history. The other species had seen what humans could do. They had seen intelligence defeat raw power. They had seen courage defeat arrogance. Prince Orion recovered from his defeat and returned home in shame. He never spoke of the duel again. Prince Victor quietly disappeared, no doubt plotting some new scheme elsewhere. The courtship summit was declared over, and Elena married Danny Cole. The wedding was a blend of human and vampire traditions. Danny wore a simple black suit. Elena wore a gown of crimson silk. They stood together in the great hall of the Obsidian Palace, surrounded by witnesses from across the galaxy. As part of the ceremony, Elena offered Danny a choice. She could give him the full gift of her blood, transforming him into a vampire. He would live forever by her side. Or he could remain human, accepting that his life would be short and that she would eventually lose him. Danny chose a middle path. He accepted a modified ritual that would extend his lifespan by centuries without fully transforming him. He would age slowly, but he would still be human. He would still feel the sun on his face. He would still treasure each moment. "I don't need forever," he said. "I just need enough time to love you properly." On their wedding night, they stood on the palace roof, looking at the stars. Elena leaned against Danny, feeling his warmth. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Choosing a monster?" Danny kissed her forehead. "You're not a monster. You're just someone who was never given a choice. Now you have one. And you chose me." Elena smiled. It was a real smile, full of warmth and happiness. A smile she had not worn in 800 years. "I chose us," she said. Below them, the galaxy continued to turn. Empires rose and fell. Wars were fought and peace was made. New species discovered the stars, while old ones faded into history. But on Noctis Prime, in the Palace of Eternal Twilight, a vampire princess and a human engineer built a life together. They proved that love could cross any boundary, that courage could defeat any enemy, that humanity, for all its weaknesses, had a fire that could never be extinguished. And when other species looked at the stars and wondered what made humans special, the answer was simple. Humans never gave up. Humans fought for what they loved. Humans were worth believing in. The galaxy had learned that lesson. It would never forget.